Welcome to the next episode of the Leadership Lab. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Anna Fontcuberta, the President of EPFL. Anna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We talk a lot with our scholars about leadership being a journey, not a destination. Can you talk a little bit about where it all began for you?
Leadership is indeed a journey, and I would say is also the spirit. I think leadership is the convincement that you can change the world around you, and I think you can do it in many ways. And I'll give you an example that I like to give. Two of my PhD students decided to make a program that called Leaves for Change. So they love plants, and they love the plants to reproduce. So they take pieces of the plants to reproduce. So they create new plants, and then they sell them. And the money goes to a charity. This is leadership.
Yes, I love that.
And so leadership, for me, I think I was always bringing people together to do new things, new ideas. And so I think as a child, I was already having this spirit to really improve my environment and to have people around me to do great things.
You've lived in all sorts of different places, haven't you? I think you grew up in Spain, lived in Germany, in France, the US. You're now running the most prestigious university in Switzerland. How has living and experiencing so many different cultures shaped your leadership philosophy?
It was my dream to be around the world, to see the world and different cultures. I think if it was to restart, I would even go to Asia, because that's even more different to what I saw. But each culture, I love to go into the new country, learn the language, blend in, and understand how they see the world. And from each place, I have treasures that made me a better person, I think. And from each place, I have found people that were very inspiring and that helped me grow and evolve as a person.
What were the biggest cultural disconnects or learnings that you had, particularly in positions of leadership, so maybe from one academic institution to another?
Disconnects?
Things that surprised you, that you weren't expecting, things that worked in a different way?
Well, I think being a woman, I entered into a country and I think the codes are different. And so the disconnects have been different in different countries. And being at an excellent institution in the US, it was very nice to see that you would meet a person and you would, talking to the person would consider you as a person and not as a woman. And it would be frank and direct, and there would not be all the other things that maybe in other countries they look at how you're dressed and you know, other kinds of stuff that are irrelevant for the work. In the US, it would be very straight. And if you want to have an idea, you do it, and it doesn't matter who you are. And I think it has been one of the most inspiring places, I would say.
That's so interesting. So in terms of gender parity in treatment, you think the US is further ahead than some other countries?
I think in the US, there are institutions where they're way further ahead than anywhere else. And I would think these are typically the top of the line academic institutions. These are institutions that make progress. They're on top of the science, on top of evolution, I would say, in academic world. It's because they have a very mature way of seeing things and doing things. I also had an amazing person as a mentor. Maybe this contributes as well. But also there, I started a company and I never felt there was any discrimination or any different treatment when I talk to people.
Do you feel as if you are a global citizen more than a citizen of one place or another?
I feel a citizen of the world, and I have to say it's probably just the Western world, because there's many parts of the world that I haven't been to. And so I cannot claim that that's those parts of the world. I would love to, but I don't know them well enough.
Theresa May, the former Prime Minister in the UK, said something once where she said, if you're a citizen of many places, you're a citizen of nowhere. And I thought that was fabulously wrong and short-sighted. And I always think that if you feel profoundly connected to more than one place, it helps you understand that the cultural norms and behaviors that you grew up with really influence how you see the world. And it means that you can understand how two people from different places who are both good people can have completely opposing views. And it helps somebody then understand how to hold two conflicting truths at the same time. Does that resonate for you at all?
Absolutely. And traveling around the world helps you experience this in a more direct way. And at the same, because then at the same time in your own country, you have people that have very different backgrounds, very different stories. And your personal story makes you interpret things in a certain way. And once you know that it depends where you come from, what you have lived in your childhood, who your parents are, that's how you live things and you interpret things. Once you know this, then in your communication, you will ask those questions and you will reach out to the others in a different way. So it makes you more tolerant, I would say, and knowing that we all have the truth and not only one person.
Yeah. As you know, we have scholars at EPFL, and one of the core programs, core elements of the program is the overseas experience, whether it's for their research summer or for their leadership in action summer. What advice would you give scholars when they're going to a new country for the first time and immersing themselves in that culture?
I would say learn the language in advance, try to read about the culture, about the history, to see what are the values of the people, what interests them, and try to blend in and become one of them.
You speak 5 languages, don't you? And I was struck actually last night watching the amazing scholars, both from the Summer in the Lab scholars and the Laidlaw scholars, giving their research presentations and talking through their posters, that they were doing it for most of them in a second or even third language, and being able to explain really complex subjects in 3 minutes in a completely compelling way in another language. What do you think having so many languages and that sort of that linguistic capability, what does that give in terms of other benefits for leadership capacity or character building?
Yeah, it's being able to communicate to different kinds of people and different languages, knowing that also when we talk all English, we may not understand the words the same way, and trying really to reach the other person and understanding, am I communicating or not? I think this is the qualities, but I'm amazed at the scholars, what they do. I mean, these people are just brilliant.
Yes. Yeah.
Superstars.
Completely humbling, I have to say. You mentioned being a woman and how in some countries you women were treated differently than in others. You set up the Wish Foundation, isn't it? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So it is the EPFL Wish Foundation. It was set by female professors in a time where there was less. You could count them with the 2 hands. So there were 3 of them, but it's the convincement that once you make it to this position, it is our duty to really give the hand to the others and make them rise. And so it is a foundation that is there to provide support to female students so that they can evolve and become the leaders they want in the world. So we give them fellowships to go abroad for the master thesis. We provide networking lunches to talk with alumni, people that are in academia, but also in the working world, to understand what they can become later. And we give the Erna Hamburger Prize. Erna Hamburger was the first female professor at EPFL.
And what does that prize involve?
We give it to a female leader that has either make a great innovation, has created a new field, or has been innovative in some kind of area.
Wonderful. And in terms of progress on that, being able to count the women on one hand, to where are we today?
So we're last time we counted, which is about 6 months ago, there were 91. And since then, as I'm the president, I present the cases to the board for new nominations, and we've nominated, I think, probably about 2 handfuls again. So we're making progress to have more female professors. It is now the normality.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what do you think are the most effective, besides foundations and things like that, what are some of the most effective strategies for encouraging more women to go into STEM and make their careers there?
The most encouraging way, I mean, schools have a big role to play.
Yeah.
And in particular teachers, and how teachers treat the girls and the boys, if they make a difference or not, if they believe in them. I think it's a big responsibility.
And have you seen things that work less well and other things where you would say, okay, this really is effective in terms of helping teachers or other people who can encourage and support to realize the impact that they have?
I think authenticity is key, because we as humans understand if something is authentic or not. Probably explaining teachers, what encourages girls, what doesn't encourage girls, because maybe it's not self-evident.
Yeah.
But I think being authentic and believing in the people, even if there are sometimes some mistakes, I mean, the girls will see it, and if a teacher believes in them, it makes a profound impact. So I think I would say this is probably the most. And when I see around the world what really makes an impact, when people really want to do things, they can be simple measures, but they really believe in it and they believe in really moving things. Sometimes in some places I've seen people do measures to show they do something, but they don't mean it.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's an investment of money that could put somewhere else.
I was speaking to a professor at the University of Toronto, and she was talking about pink washing. Mm-hmm. How much do you think that still exists?
With the reputation that now DEI has, especially in the American continent, probably much less. Yeah. But there has been a lot of it, and I absolutely don't like it.
When we were doing our research for this interview, we kept coming across things where people said what an amazing mentor you were, and how you managed to combine really being clear about the high standards that are required and also being very encouraging. How do you manage to hold both those things in the right balance?
This is my style of leadership, and it works for some people that need this encouragement and this goal setting, I would say. And I try to explain them, where we want to go and what is amazing that we're trying to achieve. And there are other kinds of leaderships that also work very well for people to really reach the best of themselves. And I think it's important that each of us finds the mentor or the boss that fits what we need in terms of advancement and leadership. So I would say this is my way of doing it, but there are other ways that work very well as well. So each one should do their authentic way of leading others, and people should also look for the leader that fits their style.
If you think about your leadership style across the university, not just with research students or as a mentor, how would you describe it?
It is very similar in the way that I try to explain where we want to be, what is the big mission we want to be, what we're striving for, and at the same time to encourage people to give the best of themselves, because at the end is what you have here that brings you forward. Mm-hmm. So that is what I try to do also with my colleagues. And so I emphasize a lot on communication, on understanding where we want to go and doing it together, and a lot on collaboration. I think there's a lot that we can achieve by collaborating, working together, and not by just having one thing and then the other thing. I think 1 + 1 is more than 2, and I strongly believe in this. And so people that work with me, they also believe the same thing, and that's how we work together.
So obviously, as part of the scholarship program, we're trying to develop our scholars' leadership capabilities and capacities. And part of that is around the traits of good leaders. So you have collaboration, you have communication. Are there other things that you think are really important for someone to be a successful leader?
I think you need to develop a way to develop a vision. Mm-hmm. So that, because you need leadership, it has to be the worst somewhere. And then you have to be able to explain the mission and why it is important. And I believe it's very important, especially today even more, it's important to stay human and to really value that the human values, what you stand for, and ensure that that we are all we all have similar values and we all stand for the same thing and want to go in the same direction.
Every year we bring all of our scholars together for a global conference. So that's with 20 different universities. And the theme this year is on brave and what it means to be a courageous leader, which seemed to us particularly important in these very polarized times where certainly a number of corporations, certainly political leaders seem to be responding to geopolitical events in terms of fear, perhaps, and concerns about what could happen if they behave in a certain way. What does courageous leadership mean to you?
Courageous leadership means sometimes doing things because they are coherent with your values, and you know that maybe the rest of the world is not yet there, but you make the step before other people because you think that's where we should be. And that, you know, maybe some people are not going to be happy, but you do it nevertheless. And I think courage is something that will become more and more important in the next years, is really staying true to your values and knowing that you lead for the common good and not for yourself. And to be a good leader, I think my convincement is that I do the best job when I think about the common good, what I do this for, and I remove completely myself and my interest from the equation. That's when I do take good decisions. That's when people come with me and when we all together do something good and together. So removing myself completely from the equation, and this requires sometimes courage because you may do something that may hurt yourself, but it's good for the collective.
Can you think of any example where you've had to do that, where you made a decision which did require you removing yourself from the equation?
I mean, in many committees, when you are there as a person, but you represent your institution or institute, and sometimes you decide something that you know it's going to go against your field. It means, for example, there's going to be less funding for your field.
For your specific discipline.
For your field. That's an example where you are there deciding something that is good for the country.
Yeah.
Even though you know that it's going to hurt your specific field of research. It's going to be less funding or something else, but you do it.
Yeah.
Because overall, that's where we all should go. And I think a leader should be able to do this because you should remove yourself from the equation.
So,
not easy.
No. And we talk about brave being things that you do that are hard. And that feels to me like that really fits into that category because you're having to do something which you know actually sort of damages something that you're interested in or that impacts you. And another way
it also be that you see that there is an injustice happening and you need to talk to a person that is very high ranked.
Yep.
But you know that if you don't alert the person that what's happening is very wrong, things will go down the drain.
Yep.
But you may be afraid that then that person maybe retaliates against.
Yes. And there are consequences.
But being brave means that so today may be bad for you, but you need to look in the long term. And the long term, you want to have a world where this is possible. And so you do it. Finding the courage to do it and finding the way to do it in a way that the person understands. That's something that you develop with age.
Yeah. So can you think maybe earlier in your career, so something where some of our scholars might be thinking that they want to experience something or do something, but are fearful that maybe they're not quite ready for it yet, or that they don't have the strength to raise an issue to somebody in a position of power. Any advice for our scholars on how to face their fears at their age?
Intelligent people are very good at thinking about all the different scenarios that can happen, and this sometimes can be can disable you to make the step and jump into the cold water. And I would say, I mean, if you think about all these things that can happen, just think about possible solutions and what could be the worst scenario. And if we don't make mistakes, we will never learn. Yeah. So I would say, think about all the things that can happen, but just jump into the cold water, because you will learn so much, whatever it happens, that's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, because you don't always have to get it right, do you?
It's very rare that you get things right from the first time.
Yeah. In terms of science and society, which is obviously, that's your specialty in your field, you've talked about that science needs to be more approachable, particularly in these times. Mm-hmm. Do you think that people's trust in science and scientists has been eroded over the last few years?
It depends on what country and what parts of the country.
Yeah.
Because we now all live in different bubbles.
Yes.
And this is not ideal from the societal point of view. There are some parts of society that are very thankful to what happened during the COVID times. They're thankful for the vaccines. They're thankful for the apps that were developed so that we know if we were in contact with the person that had COVID without knowing who this person is, because we don't need to know who this was. Yeah. Other parts of the society see the other side. They think that the vaccine was not a good idea and that privacy has been gone. So I think we need these two parts of society to talk with each other, because things are not black or white.
Yep.
And I think scientists, we have a role to play to explain what we do, why it is important, and also telling that our truth evolves with time. And we're used to be wrong, and learning from when we are wrong to evolve science. And science is not something that is static, it evolves. And we like to share with the population this query for the truth, that truth always keeps moving, right? And this is something dynamic that is fun. And I think we should be closer to the population to understand this, and so that they know why we work and why we're committed to these missions.
And how do we do that? How do we make science more approachable, accessible, so that people understand its dynamic journey?
There are different ways, through art. Art would be one way, because people understand art. Currently in Lausanne, there's an exhibition about the sun, and some of our professors have some parts of the exhibition where they exhibit something, and if you go there, you wouldn't think these are scientists, because they really are very artistic. But these pieces of art explain concepts and make people curious about it, and this is one way. Other ways, of course, with TED Talks, science coffees, and these things. I think there's a multitude of things we can do to be approachable. And not every scientist has to do it. I think having enough scientists that are approachable so that there is a dialogue, that's what we need.
You serve on the Swiss Quantum Commission, is that right? You serve, okay. And the SNSF Research Centre, is that right?
I did that for 9 years, yeah.
Wow. What did that give you, serving on those committees? What did you learn from it? And what has it taught you about the intersectionality of research, policy, and even public opinion?
I learned so much. I think I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have this experience. It was, especially the Swiss National Science Foundation was an amazing school. I learned about what other disciplines do, what are the scientific questions they have, how they manage science, what are the questions for the government to manage science to have an impact. So it's about other scientific questions, the policy, how to make an impact, and how to coordinate science to make an impact, and also how to work with other scientists and very famous scientists to have a common goal. So I learned many of the skills that I use today in my current job. So I'm very, very thankful.
And how did you end up on those committees?
I received once an email saying if I would like to apply, and otherwise I would not have thought of it, because at that time I didn't even know as a scientist one could serve to these committees. Mm-hmm. And I found it amazing. So first thing that occurred to me is that I received so much from the Swiss National Science Foundation. It's my part to give back as a service. And giving back as a service, I learned so much. And so, but it was, trying to give back and learn how it works. And then I met the colleagues there, which were amazing, and also the staff. So it was a great experience.
Would you encourage students to look out for those opportunities or find ways to serve on committees even while they're still studying?
Always with the good balance. It's important that they progress on what they do, on the studies or the research, because this is what they're going to be judged on.
Yes.
And all these committees are super interesting to get other skills, to have a broader view of what the world of science is, but also what the world of human interactions is. So taking a bit of them is very enriching, but too much, then they would take time from doing impactful research or being the best in the study. So I think a bit of both.
Makes perfect sense. You've talked about AI and predictive modeling becoming standard very quickly. And of course, it's accelerating at pace right now. How do we make sure that ethics and the way in which we use AI and potentially are used by AI keeps a pace with the speed at which AI is evolving?
That's a very broad question, and that's really outside of my job. What I can ensure is to give the tools to the students to think about this and to implement it in their daily life. And most of them already ask themselves these questions. So it's not that we have to teach them to ask these questions, but we have to give them the tools to really make something out of it. And we're implementing ethics in the courses. And it's not theoretical ethics. It's about learning to have, asking themselves the questions when they appear without knowing that they appear, and connecting dots, understanding that if they make progress in one field, what is the consequences for other fields, for other people. So really working this transversality and understanding what the actions can have as an impact, not only in one field, but in the rest, and trying to see these situations that maybe from the start, one wouldn't think there is an ethical dilemma, but if one thinks, well, there is. So getting this automatized and understanding how to solve this dilemma, that's something that we are now implementing to teach them.
Do you think that ethics should be part of every discipline of study?
I think at least the practical part of ethics, because I think some studies say that if we learn by heart the ethics principles, but don't have a practical implementation or exercise, it doesn't help much.
Yeah.
Because there's the theory and then the practice.
Yes.
And so I think that it would probably be useful to have a practical learnings on the ethics. That would probably be useful, but it's my personal opinion.
You've done research into sustainable conductors, is that right? Semiconductors. Yes. Climate change, renewables, obviously seem to go through moments in terms of whether governments are highly supportive, not supportive. What does that mean from a research perspective when there are political winds that change, and obviously in some countries more than others?
Of course, as a researcher, you need to have the research means to advance your science. And of course, if there's a topic that is no funding at all, you will have a hard time continuing to have an impact. But I think otherwise, it is important that each researcher thinks what are the questions that are important for him or herself and find the means to do it. And sometimes it may mean that the phrasing of the questions may be a bit different. But if you want to contribute to a certain mission, have it in mind and do it, because that's when you put your heart into things, then you do them very well and you have impact. So I would say, and I think sustainability, climate change, and sustainability in the way that today we are able to have, if we look at the cell phone, we look how many elements from the periodic table we use. It is a huge amount. And some of these elements, we're running out of them in the Earth crust. So, and the cell phone is just one example. So looking at what are the new materials that we use that we don't use so much of these scarce elements, or how we recycle these scarce elements so that we can have a circular economy on the semiconductors or what other kinds of materials. These are questions that I think are interesting. And if you look long term, maybe today you may not have big amounts of funding because it's not trendy, but this is certainly something that later on it will pay off if you have made progress. And I remember when I was looking for professor positions, my research project was having new concepts for solar cells to increase the efficiency.
Yep.
And I interviewed to many famous institutions and it didn't work out. And then I asked the committee, the host, what was the discussion? Can you give me feedback? And the feedback was solar cells are a polarizing topic because there's so many people that think that this will never work. And this is not so long ago. This is 20 years ago. So
Wow.
then I learned that maybe I need to look into a topic that is less polarizing. And so I had a different way of approaching it. I had the material science approach of the topic without addressing that. In fact, what I want to do is solar cells. And I got the position, I got projects, and then I did the science to get these materials for sustainable solar cells. But then you also learn how to put things in a way that you achieve still your goal.
That's fantastic. For our scholars, what do you think their biggest challenges are going to be from a global perspective? Is it climate change, running out of certain resources? What do you think in the next 20 years they're going to be facing?
In the next 20 years, we'll face higher average temperatures, which means the weather is going to become much more extreme, and peaks of extremes mean hurricanes, flood. The frequency is going to increase. So we need to have a society and the way we build the cities, the way we live, that is resilient to this. Material scarcity is probably for these very high valuable elements or materials. It's going to probably be something that countries are going to fight for and exchange with. It's going to be important for the geopolitics. And I hope that in 20 years, we have more peace than there is today. That's my hope.
Couldn't agree more. We talked at the beginning about being a woman leader in different countries. You are the first female president of EPFL in 169 years. Mm-hmm. How did that feel?
I mean, for me, I applied for this and I applied to accomplish a mission. So it turns out I'm the first female, and it is great. But at the same time, it was about time.
Yeah.
And so I don't put too much fuss into it.
Do you think for Switzerland, though, it means something? I think the last canton to give women the vote was actually still in the 1990s. So actually, Switzerland hasn't had gender equality at quite the same pace as maybe the US that we mentioned earlier. So do you think it's significant for the country?
Probably. At the same time, if I look at the cantonal universities, there have been women rectors for a long time. And I think right now we're about 50-50. So EPFL, because the cycles are long, maybe it happened just now, it required that in STEM there would be so many female professors. So to reach a certain percentage of female professors so that there are some that can be candidate for the presidency. It is, I think when this evolution happens in a natural way, that's when it's sustainable and accepted. And I hope and I think that's where we are now.
Fantastic. Universities everywhere are facing funding challenges and having to do more with less. How is that impacting you?
It's impacting in the way that my previous predecessors they could create new institutes, new schools. And this is not something I can think of. So my vision has to be approached to making sure that we continue to be at the top, serving the country in the best possible manner, adapting to the new challenges that are many with the means we have. And doing more with less, it's something I've been saying, but I realize that it can be perceived negatively. Because in fact, if you look at companies that have been in scandals, that was some of the slogans, pushing people to say you have to do more with less, which at the end people were really forced to do work very hard. So I think that's something I try not to say anymore. I read a book about it that then a common line with all these scandals were that the bosses were telling you have to do more with less. So I think we need to find ways of saying that we continue to be competitive.
Yep.
We are lean, we are agile, and we give our best, but still keeping our values and treating people like people. And
yeah. One of the things that you have put some seed funding into, if I understand correctly, is some interdisciplinary work. Why is it so important for disciplines to work together?
First of all, it's fun.
Yeah.
Because you get to know what other people do, how they solve problems, their own language, and we all love to learn. So that's a magnificent way to learn and to have impact, because the way you see things, you can help others very fast by the way you approach things and otherwise. That's the first thing. And second is that with the next challenges that we're facing as society, they have so many implications upon several disciplines that the more we think interdisciplinary, that will know how other disciplines see things, what they can do for us, the more we think in this way, the more we'll be competitive and resilient as a society.
We have a tradition on this lab that the previous guests ask a question to the next guest without knowing who they're going to be. And Alison Buchanan, who was our previous guest, said, what advice would you give to your younger self now that you've had all of the experience and career highs that you've had? So advice, but also caution.
I would say dare even more, don't think twice, and yeah, the sky's the limit.
I absolutely love that. What would you like to ask our next guest?
I would like to ask the next guest how to keep, what is the advice he would give to young people when they see all these challenges in the world and still keep an optimism and positive spirit?
That is perfect. And I can tell you that it would be Joe Clark, who's the ex-Prime Minister of Canada. So that is a perfect question for him. Anna, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.